and welcome to another episode of Mining Conversation with Ms Kelly podcast. The podcast is proudly sponsored by Minig. Today, we're all going to be having a conversation about the different mining skills that we have in South Africa. We're also going to be touching on the different minerals that are still available in South Africa. Joining our conversation today is Ms. Kgothatso Nhlengetwa. She is a geologist and a founding director of Mbokodo Mining Services Pty Ltd. And let me remind you again that please do subscribe, share, like, and follow so you make sure that you do not miss any episode. Ms. Nhlengetwa obtained her BSc in Honors in Geology from the University of the Witwatersrand. She is also serving as an ASM consultant, researcher, and special advisor to the National Association of Artisanal Miners. Askhutata, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Before I get to the mining scales, can you just kindly share with us, as a geologist, what does your job entail in the mining industry?
All right. As a geologist, there's two main aspects of being a geologist. You can be an exploration geologist or you can be a mining geologist. So the exploration geologist comes in before the minerals are found.
Yeah.
So when you go out and you go prospecting, so you go out in the middle of nowhere under the hot sun in some cases, and you go using various methods like drilling, like mapping, like sampling, looking whether there's gold, chrome, cobalt, whatever the mineral is.
Yeah.
That's called an exploration geologist. Then there's a mining geologist, which is also sometimes called a production geologist. This is the geologist that actually works on the mine. Now, this geologist will be the geologist that makes sure that the mining engineer knows where to mine. So this is the geologist that says, okay, this is the rock type we have. This is where you go and mine it. Do we go mining 30 degrees up or 30 degrees down? And this is the type of rock type we find it in. And these mining geologists are the ones that basically determine and know where exactly to mine and which rock to mine. Because you must remember, there's a lot of rock in a specific land, but the mining geologist will tell you which is the exact rock that you're supposed to be mining.
Nice, thank you. And then let's get to the mining skills. We've got small, we've got medium, and large skills in mining.
Yes.
Kindly explaining to us, like, how does one identify that this is a small scale mine, this is a medium scale mine, and this is a large scale mine?
I'm going to break it down for you even further, Ms. Teddy.
All right.
So there's actually what we call even artisanal mining, which is even smaller than what we call small scale mining.
Okay.
So we have artisanal mining, we have small scale mining, medium scale mining, and large scale mining. Now I'm going to differentiate them for you and use the terms that are currently used. Excuse me. So for artisanal mining is the type of mining that is usually informal. You might find this type of mining people just using things like axes, wooden boxes to pour in sand. You know, they're using very basic tools. You know, very, very rudimentary is the term that we usually use. Very basic tools. And this is usually done in an informal way. This informal way can be community based and it can also be traditional based. And this often happens in rural areas. So you find that you have a chief and the people in the community say, we want to mine. And the chief says, okay, I give you that piece of land to see what you can find there. This is what we call artisanal traditional mining or artisanal community-based mining. Then you have small scale mining. Small scale mining is similar to artisanal mining. The only difference is here you have what we call a degree of mechanization. Mechanization simply means that you can use some form of technology there. What type of technologies do they use? They use things like ball mills. So a ball mill is something that is like a cylinder. They put steel balls inside and they have a handheld rod, and all they do, those balls break down the rock. So that's a very simple type of technology, but it's still considered what? A basic type of mechanization. So that's now small scale mining. But it's not only regarded in small scale in terms of the mechanization, but also with regards to the size. So here I think it's important that I go into the mineral law.
Yes, please.
According mining to the mining law, which we have in South Africa, which is called the Mineral Resources and Petroleum Development Act of 2002, which is under amendment at the moment, there is a section 27. And in that section 27, it says that you have to have 5 hectares of land. So 5 hectares of land is for a small scale miner. Now, for that small scale miner, you are actually allowed to have a mining permit. A mining permit can last you up to 2 years, but that 2 years you're allowed to renew it up to 3 times. So essentially, you have two, and then you can renew it 3 times. So that's another 6 years. So essentially, you can mine up to 8 years with the mining permit. You see what I'm saying? So now that's small scale mining. Now we come into what's called junior mining or medium scale mining. Now, with junior mining or medium scale mining, oh, and there's something I forgot to mention. With regards to small scale mining, they also range within about R1 million to about R5 million turnover. Now, when we go now into junior mining or medium scale mining, these are the miners who have essentially either grown from small scale miners and they have either gotten more land to mine, or they have grown and become more mechanized. So now they're using bigger machinery. Maybe they're getting trucks now to mine. Maybe they're getting excavators now to mine. And then maybe they're also using more what we call more technology advanced. So in other words, maybe using AI, maybe using things like GIS, which is Geo Information Systems. You see. So now, once you become a junior miner, you also now capital wise, you cross that threshold. Now you're making more than R5 million turnover every month. Now, junior miners are very important because they are the bridge between small scale mining and becoming either a large scale mine or an industrial mine. But we are finding that most junior miners are staying in that space because it becomes sustainable to be a junior miner and make a relatively large turnover, because the cap for a junior miner is somewhere about 50 million. And I mean, if you're making 50 million turnover, you're pretty happy, you know what I mean? So junior miners, and there's also something even called the junior mining indaba, for example, which caters specifically for junior miners in the junior mining space because they are becoming specific players. But one thing to note is that sometimes people do clump small scale miners and junior miners under one umbrella. Exactly. So sometimes when you speak about junior mining, some people will also say, no, the small scale miners and the medium scale miners are all junior miners. Now we move on to large scale mining. Large scale mining or industrial mining is your typical large scale miners that you may know: Anglo American, BHP Billiton, Anglo Gold Ashanti. Now, these are the ones that are mining on a massive scale. You find that they have thousands of hectares that they can mine. Now, this is different because I spoke about a mining permit for a small scale miner. Now, for a large scale miner, you have a mining right, which is different from a mining permit. So now let's just go into that for a second. What's the difference between the two? Between a mining right and a mining permit. So with a mining permit, for example, you don't have to have an environmental and management plan. You have to have an environmental management aspect. It's much smaller than, whereas with the large scale miners, it's a whole program. Whereas with the small scale miners, it's a plan. With the large scale miners, it's an environmental management program. With the small scale miners, It's an environmental management plan. So it's at a smaller scale. That's the first thing. The second thing as well, with the mining right, it's much more tedious. So by tedious, what do I mean? There's a lot more red tape that you have to cross. And also it lasts a longer period. So a mining right can last up to 30 years, depending on how long you have what we call a LOI or life of LOM, life of mine. So depending on how long your life of mine is, but you can get a mining right of up to 30 years. So that's the big differences. But with both cases, you are supposed to have what's in place, something that makes sure that you're going to rehabilitate the environment after you mine.
All right.
Yes.
So, I think it's about 30 million or 20 million. The amount that you need to pay up front for rehabilitation of a mine to the government or to the Department of Mineral Resource and Energy. So that will then fall under the mining rights, and
Yes.
then it's an environmental
Management
program.
That's correct.
That's when the mines pay that amount.
Exactly.
Oh, okay.
So, and just to let you know, that amount is actually not a fixed amount.
Okay.
It's actually a percentage of your expected income.
Oh, okay.
So if, for example, your expected income is going to be 100 million in the first year, then the Department of Mineral Resources and Energy will say you need to pay such a percentage to the DMR to save for rehab. And you're much very correct when you say that falls under what? The environmental management program, and for the smaller guys, the environmental management plan.
Okay, understood.
Yeah, and also I think it's important to note here that the social and labor plan is also included in both the mining right and the mining permit. You have to have a social and labor plan. What's a social and labor plan? You have to show how you're going to employ people and how you're going to help the society where you're going to be working.
All right. So that would be the social plan, would be where you communicate with maybe the community around the line, and then they tell you their needs and stuff like that.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Because you must remember, when you go into a mine, you can't just go and mine. Otherwise, the community is going to be very angry at you. So there's something that people call the social license to mine. Now, the social license to mine is not a physical license that you get. It's basically saying that you have the buy-in from the community. So the social license to mine is saying, the community is saying to you, yes, we are allowing you to come and mine, and we're happy for you to come and mine. And it's one of the prerequisites before you go into mine. You have to speak to that community. And that's part of you developing the social and labor plan.
Yeah. Just to take a side journey, because we know in South Africa, we are prone to illegal mining or the zamazamas.
Yes.
So between these mining scales, where is the most problem? Is it faced by a small scale, medium scale, or large scale, where there's lots of zamazamas digging for gold illegally and
Excuse me. You know, this is my forte, because this is what I studied, when I did my master's. So I love this part. So when we look at illegal miners in South Africa are very unique compared to illegal mining in the rest of Africa. The zamazamas in South Africa usually invade old gold mines that were not closed properly, or if they were closed, they are reopening them themselves. And it's very important to note that illegal mining in South Africa happens, quote unquote, at a small scale because they're using picks and axes. But it is a large syndicate. And it is a large syndicate because we do not see the higher levels. We see the zamazama who goes underground. But you do not see the people who are actually bringing the zamazama, the materials for them to go underground, who are bringing them the food to go underground. So At a scale of mining, one can say yes, it's small scale because they're using basic tools, which is the prerequisite I mentioned earlier, isn't it? They're using basic tools, they're doing it at a small scale. But when you actually look at it, it's happening at a wider syndicate that is a network of criminality. So it's actually happening at a large scale. So that's why it's very, very complex. Yeah. And Zama mining, just to touch on it and just give further detail, is an invasive form of informal mining. It's very different from artisanal mining. And you hear some people say artisanal mining is Zama mining, and they're not the same thing. Because when you go to a group of women who are mining Tiger's Eye in Prista, for example, which is an area that I've visited, you cannot say they are Zama miners. Although they don't have a mining permit to mine, they're mining informally. So, but that doesn't make them Zamazamas, because Zamazamas are going underground and mining illegally and are part of the syndicate. So these are some of the challenges that we're having in the South African mining space to actually differentiate and unweb this very sticky, messy description of what is illegal mining.
So it looks like with the Zamazama, it is its own episode.
Definitely.
To just dwell on it, touch on it,
Yes.
and then just to understand what's going on there.
For sure.
All right. Let's move on to the resources that we have in South Africa. Can you kindly share with us what resources we have in South Africa?
The first and foremost that we have that we must all know is that we have gold. South Africa still has the largest gold reserves in the world. We still have those gold reserves. Some of them are very, very deep.
Yeah.
So you find that some mines are trying to find ways and see if they can go deeper, but we still have the largest gold reserves. Number two, another one most people don't realize, chrome. And chrome is something that's called a critical mineral. If you hear of critical minerals, that term is basically for minerals that are needed to drive the just transition. The just transition is basically saying the green economy, you know. So these critical minerals. So we have chrome. We have a very large portion of chrome for the world. And this you'll find in your Rustenburgs and your Northern Province, your Burgersfors and that area. Another one that we have in very great proportion is manganese. Manganese is also another critical mineral. So we also have quite a large portion of manganese. Platinum group elements, we have number one in platinum group elements. Platinum group elements is not only platinum because we made them on the rings, but platinum is also used as a catalyst in cars and technologies. And also the other elements that follow that are grouped with platinum, they're used a lot in technologies. So as our technology is actually moving, we're actually using a lot of what they simply term it PGEs, platinum group elements. So we've got a lot of those as well. And another one that many people don't realize, we've got a lot of industrial minerals. These are called aluminosilicates. And these minerals are used to make cement. They are used to make, to make steel stronger. So these are the ones that you don't think about. But when you see a building like we see here in our area where we are, that it's being constructed, those minerals are necessary to actually get construction done. And we actually have a large portion of that too. And I think another important mineral that we have that we must mention, we've got the diamonds. A girl's best friend. We've still got the girl's best friend, you know? So we've still got the diamond, okay? We've still got a lot of diamonds. And just to mention here, just to link back to small scale mining. The first small scale, excuse me, the first artisanal miner that was made legal was a diamond mine. And now they're mining in the millions. And they're actually scaling up to medium scale in the Northern Cape. So the diamonds are still there. Yeah, the diamonds are definitely still there.
Exciting. South Africa is such a rich.
We're definitely still very rich in minerals. And just to let you know, November last year, when Statistics South Africa came out with the stats, mining actually still grew by 6.8%. So the mining industry, everybody's saying, yeah, mining is dying. No, mining is not dying. Otherwise, I wouldn't have a business.
When you say that, we were speaking to Mr. Van Beek, and that's what he said.
Did it, yeah.
But also he said that because with the minerals, you can't, what is it, like plant it again so that gold comes out. So once you extract it out, then it's finished, and then that's how it works. That's why he said that the mining industry has to be in South Africa, because we're not even venturing to other industries on how to use the minerals to do other stuff. And so he spoke a lot on that, but I can see that's still got a long way to go.
We've still got a long way to go, but I'd like to say that where South Africa should be going is not only mining, but also manufacturing. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Because often, I don't know if you've ever heard of something called the resource curse. The resource curse is something that they say the African continent as a whole has, whereby we are the richest continent in minerals, but we're the poorest continent.
True.
And the reason is because we take the minerals, export them, but then we buy back the minerals once they're in their final phase. And that's because we've lost our manufacturing sector. We don't do something that's called beneficiate. We don't develop them and have a value chain. Let me give you an example just for clarity. Let's say you're a miner and you're mining gold. You mine the gold, then you sell the gold overseas. That's that. Then you want to buy a brick of gold back. But what if you mine the gold, you refine the gold, you change the gold into jewelry, and then you sell the jewelry? Can you see what you're doing?
Yes.
You're selling final stage and you're creating a value chain. So not only do you have a mining economy, you then have a beneficiation economy, then you have a refining economy as well, and then you have a jewelry making economy. So now you have 4 economies and creating a value chain instead of just having mining. And that is what I think David was alluding to the fact that we're not creating a value and supply chain in between.
So what's stopping the industry from doing that, moving to the manufacturing side, where we create? What is the hassle?
I think, to be honest, it's just a lack of political will, first of all.
Okay.
And second of all, I think we need more investors in manufacturing. Because we used to have manufacturers pre-94. But once South Africa became free, for some reason, as time started evolving, we lost our manufacturing hubs, Excuse me. So I think the biggest thing that we need to do is to develop that again and get that investment into manufacturing by attracting people, by developing these manufacturing companies. And it's starting to happen in agriculture, where you're finding small-scale miners are starting to grow things themselves, and it's growing. Maybe we can start, seeing what they're doing right and taking some of their successes and seeing if we can apply them in the mining space.
Okay. So back to the minerals again. Like in Gauteng, which minerals are in Gauteng? Or can you just, because you did mention, what is it, Rustenburg?
Yes.
So which minerals are in Gauteng, which minerals are in another province? So I can you just use that.
Sure. So in Gauteng, it's mainly gold.
Okay.
Gauteng, definitely mainly gold. But then in Pretoria area, we also have Cullinan Mine, which is a diamond mine. So we also have diamond in Gauteng. I'm going to move slightly north. In Northwest, we've got gold, we've got chrome, we've got manganese, we've also got some copper. And then let's move to the Northern Cape. Northern Cape, we've also got copper, got a big mine there called Sishen. We've also got diamonds, obviously, in the Northern Cape. Gold, a bit, one or two places. But just to mention, in the Northern Cape, the diamonds sometimes are alluvial. Alluvial meaning they come from the rivers, and then some come from underground. So they're lucky that they sometimes get diamonds from the rivers. And then moving down to KZN, and let's move down to Mpumalanga first. Mpumalanga is very big for coal, obviously in the Witbank area. So that's the major mineral there. We've got coal, and we do have some gold in the Barberton area in Mpumalanga. And then we also have let's move over to KZN. We also have coal in the Richards Bay area, and we also do have diamonds in KZN. We move down to Western Cape. Western Cape, we do have some diamonds over there. What else do we have in Western Cape? Aluminosilicates in the Western Cape. They do mine a lot of sand as well. Limpopo. Limpopo, we do have gold. In Limpopo, we also have your PGEs. In the Northwest, I also forgot to mention a lot of PGEs in Northwest as well. A lot of PGEs in Limpopo as well. I'm marking the major ones now. Which province have I forgotten? Eastern Cape. Eastern Cape, I think it's aluminosilicates, the major one there, which is a lot of sand, and a lot of industrial minerals like andesite. Andesite is used a lot in like cement making and all of that. It's a very strong mineral, very hard to burn. So it strengthens construction minerals. So there's andesite there. And is there any province that I've forgotten? I don't think so.
And then is there a mineral that we are running short of or that is coming to an end or we're still very much sufficient?
To be honest with you, gold is growing, is downgrading.
Okay.
Yeah, gold is downgrading simply because we have the reserves, but it's just too difficult to get it. It's just too deep for us to get the gold in the Witwatersrand Basin. So let me just elaborate on the Witwatersrand Basin. So the Witwatersrand Basin was basically this very huge area of gold mineralization. Now, this was where gold was discovered in 1886. But now, in the 1970s, we were top, we were number one producers. And the gold mines, the gold mines in Carltonville, the ones in East Rand, the ones in West Rand, the ones in the Northwest in cities like Klerksdorp and Carltonville, they were, really producing. But now the problem is we're going deeper. And at the current moment, you're finding levels of about 3.8 kilometers underground. Now, when you go 3.8 kilometers underground, it's getting hot, because of the geothermal gradient. Because the geothermal gradient says the lower you go, the hotter it gets. So it's getting hot down there. The lack of taking ventilation systems and all of that down there. Also, there's seismic activity because of the rocks. The rocks become unstable as you're going deeper, and you're bringing out more and more. So the rocks become unstable, and you have things like rock bursts, and you have things like fall of ground where the rocks fall in. So, and you have sinkholes in some areas. So it's just becoming more difficult to get our gold reserves. So gold really is on the decline with regards to South Africa. Even though we have the reserves are there. You can see in the numbers that we have that gold, but getting to it is just the problem, really. Yeah.
And then before we even started this the interview, you were just sharing with us how we traveled to then even on Saturday we said we're going to Tanzania, which is great. So now share with us when you go to these countries, what do you notice with their mining industry? South Africa, what is the difference? What is it that they do right, and what is it that you can learn from these other countries?
excuse me. So Africa as a whole has similarities and there's differences. And I think it's very cognizant that I touch on both. So let me start with the differences. The biggest difference between South Africa and the rest of Africa is that South Africa is focused on large scale mining. You see, we are very large scale mine intense, whereas a large part of Africa, you find that there's a lot of artisanal miners who are just mining at a community level, and then the large scale miners come after. So that's the first difference. The second difference is that in South Africa, you find that the mining law caters a bit more than some other African countries. It's more well developed, which we know to be fair for South African policymakers, they really do get it right with policy. Well, the implementation of the policy is another story, but they do get it right with the implementation, excuse me, with the drafting of the laws and that. So our law really is key. And another major difference that I see also is the buy-in from the community. South African communities seem to give better buy-in than other African countries, whereas other African countries want to have the mining for themselves. They want the community to do the mining, and then that's where you end up having the conflict between the artisanal miners in the country and the large-scale miners. Now, where are the similarities? The similarities are that in most African countries, the governments are corrupt, unfortunately, and which is something I've seen most people assume that is only a South African factor. Most African countries have corrupt governments. So you find that these African countries, in order to get mining rights, or in some African countries, it's called mining concessions. You have to, pay something under the table. You get what I mean? Right? Yeah. So that's a similarity there. And another thing that is quite similar across all the African countries is that large-scale mines get preferred over, empowering artisanal miners. So you find that the governments will always put preference to the large-scale miner simply because they feel like they'll bring in the most income, you see. And then the third thing that I'm seeing that's a bit similar across South Africa and other African countries is that now there's more attention being put on the artisanal, the small scale, the junior miner, and realizing that it's not just the large scale miners thing. And this is just across the globe. It's even happening in Asia as well, where you're starting to see that people are starting to realize that, what, mining is actually more diverse than just the large scale player. So that's also something common that I've seen lately across the African continent.
And to just close off our conversation today, in your own words, what would you like to see happening in the mining industry? Making it like for the mining industry to be like, what is it that you would like to see happen in the mining industry, especially in South Africa, of course?
Mm. So for me, there are three things I would like to see in the mining industry. Number one, I would like to see large-scale miners truly uplift the communities in which they work. Not just build a school, not just build a clinic, but truly empower and upskill the people of that community. Whether it's through enterprise development, whether it's through bursary schemes, whether it's through supply chain and bringing them into their supply chain, giving them business acumen. You do get what I mean? So that's the first thing. Building the communities in which they work for the large scale players. Second of all, what I want to see within the mining industry is the artisanal and small scale miners having a bigger voice. I can't not say that because that's my forte. It's my forte. So I want there to be a recognition that artisanal and small scale mining is a viable solution for economic problems in the country, and it's a form of mining that is sustainable and can be made a viable economic contributor to the GDP. And lastly, what I want to see for the mining industry is I want the mining industry to create a domino effect in creating mining value chains. So creating value chains that have beneficiation, that have tertiary products created. So we go from primary, which is mining, to tertiary, where we're selling things off. If we have that, we're all rich people.
Wonderful. And thank you so much for joining me today and sharing your mining knowledge with us. And also, I would like to thank my team for making this podcast possible, which is Bangali, Shweni, Siteka, and Sam Panori. And can I ask again that please do not forget to subscribe, like, share, and follow. And also let me not forget to thank our sponsor, Mina, that has made this podcast possible. With that being said, until next time, thank you and goodbye.